And we are live, right from everybody. It's amazing Sunday afternoon. I'm here with Eva. She also goes by Lauren. I'm having some can happen sometimes in the beginning. So I am very excited to have Lauren here with us today, and we are going to talk about many different things, but mainly we are going to talk about this amazing book called The Holy Dust that she has written. So I'm going to give the word to you. And if you want to say a little bit about yourself and how you started about writing this book.
Well, hello, Gabriella. It's great to talk to you too. Um, the book actually started, oh God, 20 something years ago. And I was at the Trappist monastery looking at all of the priests and the monks and all the people who just so believed. And I wanted to believe the story. I wanted to, but I just, all of a sudden, this entire story that we have mistaken what religion is and who God is. And I was with a friend of mine and very devout. And I just kept hitting her. We have to go. We have to go. We have to go. Because I had to tell her the story. And then life got in the way. And then when COVID hit, and I was a realtor, which means, people are out looking for homes. Um, I said, I'm gonna take this time and finish this book, and completely rewrote it because in 20 something years, I learned a lot and changed a lot, and so went, okay, let's do it right. Let's just go ahead and do it right. So that's where the Holy Dove started, and a lot of it was coincidental, bizarre things like a book fell out of the bookshelf. Literally, just fell when I was typing, just fell. And it opened, and it was Benet's Reader's Digest, and it said Lilith. And I went, who's Lilith? And then I went, oh my God, I need to rewrite that whole chapter, redo the whole thing. It's been it's an interesting journey to relook at our culture and our ideas and say, are we looking at them incorrectly? Do we need to relook at how we're thinking?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have read this book 3 times. I might be a little back, and but today when I opened the book, I just right exactly when you were talking about God and how we are looking at things, I opened at page 273, and I just want to read my little part of it, and then um, because I think it shows some of the essence. There's a lot more into the book. I just really love this little section that I just happened to open today. So, right, God asked, "What happened to the apple?" It's a Celeste response. Within seconds, Adam blamed Eve and Eve blamed God. They betrayed each other to proclaim their innocence. They got kicked out of paradise because they lied, as Bria, who did Adam and Eve think they are dealing with? God? Tentatively. Right. God knows all things. They got kicked out of paradise because they broke the 11th commandment, the most important of all commandments. Princess Celeste felt firmly as she leaned forward. Accept responsibility for your actions, thoughts, and deeds. It's simple as that. That's not simple, Bria answered. Being responsible for your actions, thoughts, and deeds is the hardest thing imaginable for a person. We humans do our best never to accept responsibility for anything. I noticed, Princess Celeste said, and so has God. That just really hit me this morning reading that because there's so much into that about how, yeah, there's so many people who do not want to accept responsibility for their action. And there's a lot in this book about that throughout with different fights, and I don't know how much of the plot we want to give away, but I don't know. Speak to that a little bit of what your thoughts on. Um,
That's really funny when you said you've read it 3 times. I've had more readers say, I picked it up again and I had to read it all over again. I had one older man who said to me that I knew from a writer's group, and he said, I really didn't like it. And I went, oh, but that's okay. You don't have to like it. And when said, well, obviously you didn't understand it, read it again. And I was at a book signing and he was there. And I'm going, oh God. And he came up to me and he said, I have to apologize. He goes, I read it again and I know I'm going to read it a third or fourth time. He says, because all of a sudden I understood what you were saying. And
Mhm.
and that God is a loving God. It's not the God of the Bible, nor the Quran, nor any of the religious books. God is a duality of all things in the universe, and is rooting for us, to do the right thing. And as far as accepting responsibility, that kind of is our go-to behavior is, I didn't do it. I didn't mean to do it. No, if you did it, you did it. And so you've got to fess up because you're not fooling anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how people do it.
I feel like that there's a storyline in the book, but then there's also like kind of a story behind the story, as you were saying earlier, like looking at our culture and society and how we look at things today. Um, I really feel like society becomes so fast paced and material and all these things are important. Yet in your book, we go back to what is really.
Well, and I think that's true. Is that we're stuck in our faith 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and unfortunately, that's why, like 40 to 60%, depending what country you're in, the younger people are not going to church anymore because it doesn't make sense. The stories can make sense, they just don't make sense because we took a world where they the people had probably never been 5 miles away from their house. The whole story happens in a very small region, smaller than New Jersey, and and, and they didn't understand science or anything else. So to take those same stories, one of my favorite, and I don't know if I'm going to write about this, but um, we can talk about it. Is how the story, how we can make the stories logical, and it's Noah's Ark. You know the story of Noah's Ark, right? Yeah.
I love the story, yes.
Okay, but let's talk about the story of Noah's Ark because we now know scientifically between 14,000 and 12,900 years ago, there was the end of the ice age. And the seas rose 400 feet. Can you imagine if today the water rose 400 feet, wipes out the West Coast, wipes out everything? And and of course, every civilization in the world has a flood story. And I started thinking about, I was thinking about Noah's Ark because I like to read to children and I do that at schools and things. And not religious things, but I was thinking of the story of Noah's Ark and how, he this how many cubit long boat, which is 3.5 football fields. And he was 100 years old at the time, by the way. And he built the ark in the desert. So my first question is, where did the wood come from? You know, wait a minute, he's in the desert. Okay, well, let's say that, it all washed down. And so he built this ark and he gathered every animal in the world. He didn't even know England existed. How did he know about polar bears and kangaroos and panda bears? And that doesn't make any sense. And so I love to research. I looked up, guess how many animals, and mammals, snakes, insects, whatever, are native to the Sinai Peninsula? Yes.
I don't know. 16,000. I don't know.
Thank you very much. 58, I'm sorry, 58 species, including insects, birds, everything, are native to that area. I know. Okay, so now we're getting a number I can play with. So at that time, which 12,000 years ago, maybe people knew how to build barges. The Phoenicians had a barge with a little side, Egyptians a barge with a little side. So maybe Noah found the wood, and maybe he built a barge, and maybe he gathered 2 of every one of the 58 species, and he floated down the river. Now I can see that happening, and I can look at him and go, he was one of the first great ecological warriors. I mean, he was a warrior, and now that story would make sense because all civilizations have a story. And so if you start looking at the stories and saying, how do these make scientific sense? Surprising how many of them do, and that's the Noah story is my favorite.
That's a really good question that you were asking, like how all that happened. On the other hand, when we look at it, like if it's mythical or if God can do whatever he wants to do, just probably put the wood there for no use. If we say, God can do anything, but can he really? So, because even throughout your book, there's certain things that God can do and certain things that humans have to do.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of free will. I mean, when humanity in the book, when humanity was created, you have the duality, as we have male and female, and you have Jehovah, which I just picked the names that we would understand, Jehovah, who is logic and organization, and we have Inanna, who is creativity, and she creates all things, and she's imagination, and she's emotion, and she's these things where he is, order and logic, and that's important. We need that duality, that balance, and so she came up with this great idea that to create the only creature in the universe who had free will. And Jehovah ran all the numbers, looked at it very seriously, and told her, "Oh, that's going to be a disaster." But she did it anyway. And so, so now the premise of the holy doves is that the holy doves are the linear descendants of the first Messiah that Inanna had sent to make people, let's get back together. You are responsible for your own decisions, and you can't blame God, and you can't blame me because you get to make them. And it's so Jehovah looks at it and he goes, disaster, it's time to annihilate humanity. And so it didn't work, told you it didn't work, and so Inanna sneaks behind his back to try one last time to save humanity by making us understand who we are, and that we are not here, we are here to think, we are here to create, we are here to be responsible for our own decisions, and not say someone else told me to do that. But it says this. No, you have to think about what it said, and you have to think about everything. And that's the greatest gift we have, and our greatest downfall. Thinking's hard.
Absolutely. And just to say, you do have some evil characters in your book too. So not everything is super lovely. There are some evil characters. You want to talk them a little bit?
Definitely. There was a group it's basically a battle within the Catholic Church that is going to affect the whole world. From one, the good guys, the guardians of the holy doves, has known the truth of our responsibilities to ourselves and to all humanity. And I love at one point, one of the, actually it's Princess Celeste, asks Bree, who is a mixed race woman, well, what are you? I mean, are you Chinese? Are you what? You kind of, And Bree looks at her and she says, I get that asked a lot. And my answer is human.
Yes, I love that.
And the funny thing is, whenever I have surveys now, on the internet, and they are paperwork that says, what are you? And it says other, I type in human. And I have had people go, I love that. I love that you do that. I said, well, Bree did. Yeah, Bree
I
did.
love it too because I think, like, even if I just look at my own genetic makeup, I'm from so many places and cultures. And though I was born in Italy, my genetics go back to Asia, to Africa, to Italy, to Germany. There's just so many different um that yeah, I am human. I can't really say that I am just one or I am
Oh,
this or I am that.
no,
We're all a mix of everything. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And so sometimes my characters do things that I don't expect them to do. One of them is Felix, and he is a bad guy. There is a group within the Catholic Church that has been around for a long time, who also knows the truth of the descendants of the Messiah and the prophecy that the next Messiah will come from one of the holy doves, the daughters. They decide that in order to stop the child being born and destroy their power and their wealth, they have to find the mother and kill her. And the other group, the guardians, have known the truth, but their commitment has been for 2,000 years to protect the family. So the child can be born, so we can be saved as a species. And so Felix is a killer for Opus Dei, and Opus Christos. I'm sorry, because Opus Dei is real, and we wouldn't want to talk about real things. Opus Christos, which is this kind of really radical group, and he is hunting down the women that are on the list of the daughters, and he is now in the Vatican, working for one of the cardinals, who is head of this organization, and kind of like the Knights of Malta, which are real and have nothing to do with my book, of course. Yeah, nothing at all. Did a lot of research, and so he gets he gets angry because they aren't respecting his talent enough of how he can kill people, and so a nun is coming up the stairs, this elderly nun, and and Felix just did something I didn't expect, and he just does things. So does Gabriel. They do things. And so I was in a Japanese restaurant, having sushi with a friend, and she goes, how's it going? And I said, you can't believe what Felix did. She went, what? I said, he just kicked Sister Maria down the stairs and she broke her neck. And the whole restaurant went quiet. Like, huh? And I said, it's a Nick. He's a bad guy. It was the And now I need to be careful that I don't talk about, those kinds of things. And Gabriel, the Archangel Gabriel, plays a very important role because he is the messenger of God. And he can be so difficult because he's just frustrated. Can you imagine living forever and knowing you've been around from the beginning of time and you're going to be around for the end of time, and you just see all this stuff that's not working out the way it's supposed to? He's just frustrated with humanity, and he kind of is a bitch. That's the only word you can use for him. In the book that I'm writing now, the continuation of the story, he kind of starts to mellow out a little bit. He starts to see that maybe humanity isn't all bad, that there are good things in humanity. And so they are trying to hunt down Bria and Joseph, who there are 3 holy dove males born every year, every generation, to the oldest daughter of each of the three daughters. So there are 3 lines, and Joseph happens to be one. And so uh, he, I don't even know where I was going with that story. Oh yeah, that he and Joseph are supposed to be friends now, and he and Milo. Milo's another one. He's a good guy, but he's just a wild card. You never know what Milo's going to do. Milo sometimes surprises me. So sometimes my characters, I don't know my my writing process. Besides a lot of research, is also I'll just, go to bed early for me at 11 or 12, and I'll just think, and all of a sudden I'll go, that's not what he would have done, and
Mhm.
we'll that, sometimes get back up and sometimes not get back up and wake up in the morning and go, what was I thinking that he should be doing now? But they, they do what they want to sometimes. And it's kind of fun to watch that happen. Um, so I entertain myself too.
Absolutely. I love that. The writing process is like when you're so much into the character, the character kind of becomes
Mhm. They do become they do become real in a way. And I had one of the reviews that was done, and this woman wrote, and it cracked me up. She goes, "You know what? This is supposed to be a work of fiction, but I think it's real. I think it really happened." And I went, "Well, if it did, I must be channeling it because I don't, personally, I don't know that it happened. I don't think it happened, but she's just was bound and determined that this was this was nonfiction." That I was thought, no, no. But but the characters now are growing in the second book and continuing on, and that's a fun process too, to see how they're relating with each other now that they all kind of know who is who and what is what, um, which is fun. And I enjoy it. It's fun. And for
so when you think about this book, um, and the whole writing process and becoming an author, you wanna how that felt after 20 years of writing this book, now become an author and how that process went for you?
Well, 20 years ago, I mean, I wrote it and then I sat on it. And believe it or not, I went to this psychic for some reason. And it was just for fun, one of those events that happen. They have psychics. And she asked me if I was writing a book. And I said, yes. And she goes, "You're too young. You don't know enough. Put it aside. Come back to it when you grow up," which was at 50 something. I thought I was grown up, but but I did put it aside because it just wasn't flowing the way it should have flown. And she's right. I learned a lot over the last 20 years because when you look at the end of life, which we have no choice but to look at that when you are in your late 70s. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's important now. I should have realized 30 years ago that was important, you know.
Mhm.
And so it is interesting. And I really like the young people's attitudes right now. Um, it's they're kind of seeing through a lot of cultural mythologies that like work as in a factory for 40 years and get a pension, and aren't you doing well? And they're just going, no, no. Just you have to listen to what your priest or minister or rabbi or imam says, and they're going, no, I have to think about that story. And I appreciate that. I think it's great. You To get spirituality, you have to have very personal understandings. You know, it's like I don't know if you know this story, but I'm going to tell you. As I've talked about this story before. I had to have some dental surgery, and I am scared to death of dentists. And I went in um, to have my teeth cleaned, and they took X-rays. And the dentist came back and he said, "When did you break your jaw?" I haven't broken my jaw. He goes, "You have a broken jaw." And I ended up having to have 3 dental surgeries, and staples and all this awful stuff. And I mean, I'm scared to death of dentists. And I was just at that the night before. I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm just scared to death. And so I started thinking about prayer and how, as humans, we've made prayer so selfish. Um, and it's like, please, please, make the dentist not hurt me, and please give Johnny an A, and please let me buy a new car. And I started thinking about prayer, and I'm laying in bed, just shaking because of the dental appointment in the morning. And so I went, I'm going to change how I pray. And so I did, and I said, "Thank you, God, for giving me the intelligence to know that to save my life, this surgery has to happen. And thank you, God, for giving me the ability that I live in a country where I can go to a dentist. And thank you for allowing me to drive there myself. And thank you for letting me face this with dignity." And I got up the next morning and I drove to the dentist and I went, "Hey, let's go. Let's get this done." And 5 hours later, I went, you know, instead of asking for things, how about we thank God for the gifts that we were given? The intelligence, knowledge, the, you know, the ability to make decisions. And the decision that I had to make at that time was that to save my life, because it was all infected, um, I had to do it. And I did it. And it wasn't me because I was scared to death, but I got that strength by recognizing and acknowledging the gifts I was given by God. And
I think that music, just in general, when we think about life and outlook on life, positivity and gratefulness go a long way instead of always focusing on the negative things.
I think that's absolutely true. Um, and it's looking at the gifts you were given, inherently, even that having free will, which is, we talk about our free will, but then we'll go, but somebody else made me do it. No, nobody else made you do it. You decided to do it. Whatever. To accept responsibility, and to understand that no one can make decisions for you. They just can't. You give up your power, but to people, but that's not right. That's not why God gave you a brain.
Amazing. Um, I was going to ask you something, and I told. So, if you think about, um, since you published the book,
Yeah.
I know you went back and changed a lot of things. Do you sometimes think, well, I would, go back and change this or
You know, um, again, I don't think I would change very much of the holy doves. Um, as I because I think it says something important, about our relationship with, and I don't know what God is. I am not that arrogant or egotistical. I think there is something bigger than me, but it really doesn't matter what it is or isn't. Um, I just have to accept that the gifts that I was given, I have to use, and the way that I treat other people and accept other people, um, that is one of the greatest gifts that God gives all of us, and that we have gone so far astray as humanity of violence and war and prejudice and uh, it, it I'm only responsible for me, and and I'm not judging anyone else because I don't live in their skin. And it's not my job to say you're wrong. Maybe you're right and I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll find out someday. But it's so I wouldn't change the Holy Doves. The new book of the Lilith Conspiracy. No, actually, right now it's called Lilith's Daughter. It may change. It's just the working title, and everybody, you know who Lilith is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Lilith was Adam's first wife. It's if you really read Genesis, you realize that there are two women, and the first one was Lilith, and she was the one that God wanted. That's why God created her first from the dust, and they were equal. And Adam tried to bully her. All things are subjugated to God. You're subjugated to me. And Lilith went, no, not going to do it. And so it was in the next chapter of Genesis before uh, Eve showed up, and God took a rib, and so when he from Adam's when Eve, he woke up, he said, "As all things are subjugated to God, you're subjugated to me." And Eve went, "Yeah, okay." So to give up your God given power to anyone, um, be that oppressors, be that war, be that a relationship, be that yourself. That's not okay. You have to accept again the responsibility of you making the decisions that affect your life and doing your best to make the right decisions. And if you make a wrong decision, you can change. That's one of the beauties of being a human. You have the free will to change who you are, and you change the world by changing yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. There's one way I like to visualize that when you were talking about, doing positivity, kind of kindness toward other people. It's like if you look at the ocean, and even if just what I do is a drop in the water,
Yes.
by itself, it does not go to change the color. But if I do a drop, you do a drop, then that would spread to water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drops, then it will change the color of the water. And I think that more people in the world are trying to do positive and kind things and just be a kind of each other. As you were saying, we have no right to judge anybody because we don't really know what they went through in their lives and what perspective they live life from. And one can hope that more and more positivity will spread in kindness toward each other.
I think it will, and I think sometimes we need to be kicked in the teeth, and that's unfortunately what I think is going on, especially in the United States right now, to force you to say that's not right. That's not right. And you grow. You grow. Morality is not something that someone else can give you. It's something you must develop through, um, through your thoughts and through your meditations. That some things are wrong, and whether they're accepted doesn't change that they're still wrong.
Absolutely. I just want to say welcome to Clea joining us in our conversation. Dr. Lauren was the author of The Holy Doves, this amazing book, and we've been having a discussion about the book. So if you have any questions to Lauren or me, or to bring up observations, please let us know. Do you have a favorite character that you just absolutely?
I really enjoy Gabriel. I really do, because
Uh-huh.
um, you see him so many, and especially, I mean, you see it someone in the first in the Holy Doves. You see him growing, and no, actually, you do see him growing and caring about humanity, which he hadn't ever done for billions of years. Um, but he's one of my favorite. I really enjoy
Mhm.
him. Um, I like Sister Celeste very much. I'm sorry, Sister Celeste, Princess Celeste, and I'm in the second book here, Lilith's daughter. You learn more about Pope Peter, and you learn more about Sister Bernadette. And I like Sister Bernadette. She's kind of grumpy, and but she makes things happen, and that's, um she doesn't take no for an answer. She will get it done, and I like that. I like that in her. So I like most of my characters, even my bad ones. Um, well, you kind of go, okay. I mean, somebody asked me, and this is a writer's thing, but in I don't know if it helps, but when I start with a new character, I don't do an outline about what that character is going to do, but I write an outline. Basically, I know what Milo has for breakfast, and I know makes him laugh, and I know what kind of sets him off, and I know what's important to him, and and so I do an outline of who that person is, and once I understand that he eats Cocoa Puffs for breakfast, oh my God, then all of a sudden I'm going, this is somebody who Cocoa Puffs for breakfast who's in his 30s. He's been sung in a certain way, you know. Um, and the characters that are a little more rigid than Milo is. That okay, they're going to have the bacon and the eggs, and uh, the fruit and the orange juice and the coffee, and everything has to be just perfect. And so they're going to be a little more restrained in their behavior. Um, and I so that's I every one of my characters I could tell you you know what they wear to bed, because that's important to me. Once you understand your character, even though they're live only in your head, um, then you understand how they're going to respond to situations.
Absolutely. I love that. Um, is there any of the writing or the creative process that you like more than others?
Ah, I do. We started to talk about that a little bit. Is I will write something, and then well, who do I talk about next? Where do I go next? That's when I, you know, lay in bed with the lights off and go, okay, uh, what in the world is Father Richard going to do? Well, he's going to die. What what's going to happen to so and so? And how am I going to get from there to here? And I have an amazing editor that I work with. Um, and she'll catch things like, okay, you just skipped something, or how did that make sense? The time doesn't work, because what I did, what I do when I write, at least this series, um, is that we have gotten used to life, even in books, being like a TV series or a play, where uh, what when you've got 10 characters, but when one is speaking, everybody else freezes, and that's not how life happens. And so the book is broken down to not only a day, but a time of day. So this can be going on with Bria, and this can be going on with Cardinal di Posada, and this is going on with Milo, and it's all happening at the same time, because that's what life. We don't stop and go, oh, wait a minute, a friend a mile away is talking. We, there are things that are happening, but kind of we've been programmed by television, that there's going to be a certain focus. It's everyone's going to stop so this person can, and then when they're done, then they'll resume. So in the book, it's there could be multiple things happening that are moving toward each other. They always are moving toward each other, but it's an entirely different storyline. So I think that can be confusing for people who actually believe the world is linear, which it isn't. Um, and yet it's how the world really is. No one stops because I have a great thought. No.
Absolutely. They just everything keeps moving.
Okay.
If I think about the character, really like Gabriel as well, but I also really like Bria. I just feel like a connection to
Yeah.
Bria, and I really appreciate that the supports Bria gets from her creator. As a designer, I love that scene, and I forget the guy who was Bria in the studio, but he to dismiss her, and
Oh yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I love that women are really supported in this book, and as a woman, I love that femininity of it, and the support that Bria gets.
Well, we've had what 6,000 years of history. I think it's important that we history. And and the truth of the matter is it's exciting to think about, it's I make an awful joke. I say the books that sell the best are thrillers because you're never going to meet a spy or be shot at under a bridge. True crime stories, how many of us have ever met a real criminal? Not. And true romance, and we like it because none of those things are ever going to happen to us. I'm not a, I'm not a, I'm not a romantic. And so Bria is real. I mean, and I think the fact that her age, which is 25, 26, they've grown up with a different relationship to women, and we see that in our culture where it's women who don't want to marry, women who don't want to be, you know, to continue on, and we have to respect that this time women will change history. We will. We will make it different. And yeah, we've always stepped aside. Um, but this time I don't think these young women are. They're amazing. I look at them and I'm in awe, because I was, at an age where, you know, I got married for the first time at 22, and I was like, oh, you're an old maid. Because everybody else was getting married young. And I did what I was supposed to do, but what I was supposed to do didn't make me happy. So I think these young women are amazing. How they're going, no, not doing that, not doing that at all. I'm going a different direction, my career, whatever. If I want children, I'll just have them. Um, you know, uh, yeah, I really, I have I have some tenants that are all young, and I just enjoy talking to them and how they think, and you're going like, good for you, you know. It's when COVID happened, and and young people just didn't go into work, and I was at a restaurant. I think 86 actually, out of the restaurant that my that a friend and I used to go, and they had an outdoor patio, so we felt safe going there. And the owner comes out and he says, we know him because we've gone to this restaurant a lot. And he said, you have to come inside because I can't watch inside and outside because all of my stupid young kids, they don't want to work anymore. And I said, they don't want to work, but they don't want to eat. And he goes, yeah, they just don't want to work. And I go, well, it tells me that you must be a lousy boss. I said, because everybody needs to do something to pay their bills. And if they won't work for you, it's not them. They're just having, like after the bubonic plague, when unions and guilds started, because the workers said, we don't want to be abused anymore. These kids are going, wait a minute, no health insurance, no vacations, no this, no that. Now we don't want to work for you. And I go, it just proves to me what a rotten boss you are. And he kicked me out. But you never have to come back here again. And I went, well, I hadn't planned to, you know. But I still I'm amazed at how they are re-looking at society. They are re-looking at our our myths of, go to work for 40 years and be happy with your retirement myth. You have to get married if you want to be happy. They're looking at all of them and they're just going, no. So I look at them with, I think they can change the world if they can just stick together. And that's what the Holy Doves is about. It's about changing the world for the better.
If you could tell the people who are listening or the people who are going to look at this recording later, a takeaway from the book.
From the book? I think we already talked about that in a way. You are responsible for your own relationship with God. No priest, no minister, no one else to tell you how it has to be because you're relying on someone else's relationship. You have to build your own relationship to call it God, call it the Spirit, call it the great unknown. It doesn't matter. This set of morality and this set of responsibility that you take and you build for your own to not hurt other people and to do the best you can, not only for yourself and your family, but for the community and the world in general. We can do it. Just because we've never really done it doesn't mean it can't happen. We can do something better. And I think that would be a takeaway. To learn how to critically think about the stories we've been told and the ideals that have been put upon us as a society that maybe aren't the right ideals at all. There is no justification for prejudice. There is no justification for violence. There is no justification for judgment of other people. Just there's no way to justify it, and yet we have allowed that to have been going on almost from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
That this tribe is bad. That person, no, you don't know. You don't know. Stay in your own lane and do your best, I guess, and use the gifts that you were given in a positive manner. And that's what the book's about, because Bria is in the book. When Bria gets the Annunciation, I mean, she just like, what did you do? Did you drug me? She had a totally modern, like, this cannot be happening. This is ridiculous. This is a practical joke. Where are the cameras? But she just can't accept the miracle until she has to. And that becomes a realization within herself because Princess Celeste says, Brie, listen to your heart, listen to your soul. It will tell you the truth. Just stop for a minute and go inside and listen. And she does. And oh my God, this is something, because she's a lapsed Catholic, a lapsed Christian. She says, oh God, I didn't believe any of this stuff. And I don't believe that it was taught to me, but there is something bigger than me. And she finally realized it. Um, and so she has a very personal relationship with God. And that's all you need. You don't, there's no need for interference. You know what I mean? Um, it's
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And the ability to admit you're wrong sometimes. You know?
I love that to kind of pause. I write about those things a lot too, just to pause and take a moment and feel what you're feeling, or go inside, as you were saying, and just make your own decision or feel your own feelings. Many times we, especially all the noise and social media and everything in society today, but I heard a lot of people just being confused, or too much is outside. So I think it's really important to take a pause and
Yeah,
have own thoughts and own observation and take your own responsibility, as you were saying.
yeah. I think you're true. We're being bombarded constantly with too much, and sometimes you just have to turn it off. You have to turn off the constant screaming of our culture and go, but what do I think? What does this make me?
Yes.
How do I respond to this? And and it's and doing scary things. Sometimes you have to do scary things, like go to the dentist. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
or a bunch of my neighbors, it kept, we have to do, the No Kings March. We have to do it. We have to do it. And I was going, no, no, what if the police come, blah, blah, blah. And then I went, wait, just because I'm scared doesn't mean I'm wrong. So let's do it. And we did it. And it was amazing. It was amazing, that support of my community. Um, that it just was very just very warm and open and accepting. And it kind of made me realize that I have to stand up some more than I have been, even. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens next. I've also had comments about how the book is very political, and I guess it is.
Great. Oh,
I can't hear you, Gabriella, if you're speaking.
yes, the internet connection kind of, it's a little bit going in and out, because I think of brain. I want to ask, is there anything we talked about a lot of different topics about the book? Anything that I didn't ask you about that you feel like you want to share?
Uh, no, I just hope people will read it, and people will understand it. And if you don't understand it, then read it again, because then it'll make sense. I've learned that from several people, um, because um, it is a thinking process, and that's what it hopes that you'll do. Just think about the mythology. And I love when Anana talks to Joseph, and she tells him that there's no heaven and hell. There's just becoming part of God again. You go back to where you have always been, part of God. I thought that was nice. I like that. And again, that was one of those things that just wrote itself, when she was talking. So, but it was so good talking.
Absolutely. And for those of join it's we are talking about the book, The Holy Books. And you can buy it online or print it on it. And I'm going to put all the links to the book and some articles that already came about the book in description in Substack. And if you have any questions about it, you can send a message on Substack, and I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities, but it is an amazing book. As I mentioned in the beginning, I have read this book in different versions, like about 3 times, again a 4th time. And I love it, and I'm looking forward for the second book to come out. Do you have all idea when the second book can be ready for the readers?
Well, I was hoping to have it out already, but then I broke my arm. And when I broke my arm, I mean, I broke my arm, 2 plates and 14 screws, which kind of stopped my typing ability for a while, but I'm back on track and feeling great. So yeah, I'm hoping by Easter. I'm hoping by Easter. That's my plan.
Wonderful.
Well, God,
I would hope to speak to you again before or after the next book come out.
well, good. Yeah.
More about that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was great seeing you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much for everybody who joined, and we'll put all the links as I said in the book. And thank you for the great conversation.
Bye bye.
Everyone have a good day.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Gabriella. Bye bye.